Blood was leaking out where the skin had taken the most damage. I must have been in shock because all my attention was focused on watching the flesh peel off and fall into the sink. As flesh fell away, that thing came into view. I don't know if I saw the paw or the tentacle first. They were so small I couldn't even tell what they were at first. All I know is that there was something in the sink. It was black, the same black that Mothman is depicted in. If I had felt the pain, the noise of the scream I would have let out if I was in pain wouldn't compare to the sound that I made when I saw that thing. The thing in the sink must have known I saw it. The tentacle and paw quickly receded down the drain hole. I staggered back and just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. What the fuck did I just see? Was I going insane? No, it had to be real. My scream got the attention of Jacqueline and Raymond, who came running immediately. The only reason I forgot that sight was because of the more mangled one that was a week later. But I didn't forget the smell. The water vapor carried it throughout the kitchen. Grant was speechless. We thought he was in shock, and rightfully so. Half of his arm was drooping and melting off, hitting the sink like a bowl of thick soup. Raymond called an ambulance, and I rushed over to the medical cabinet to grab anything I thought would help. Maxwell came running in after us, but he didn't do anything to help. Instead, he just started crying, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't understand at the moment, and I was mad. I yelled at Maxwell to get it together. I should apologize to him for that. Grant didn't come back to work again after that, until I found him in front of the sink, missing more flesh off the same arm. My mind so badly wanted answers, my body began to shake. Did his mind make something up to try to hide the mental image of his own arm melting? Was he insane? I wanted that to be true. I didn't want to see the thing he saw, but there was nothing to see. Tentacles couldn't fit in the sink, or a paw, or any sort of animal for that matter. Otherwise, the thing would have to be a shapeshifter to fit in. I had to think rationally. One nagging thought remained, as I tried to explain everything away. Why would he write the rest of what I am about to read? He had to have seen something, if he had written about it this much. I shook away the dangling thought. I started flipping, back towards where I was previously, to get a better picture of Grant's psychosis. More journal entries popped up, just adding more questions to the pile. More missing papers, and more clots of Ruby censoring of critical information didn't help. It was all right in front of me, and yet I couldn't see it. Something discernible did come through every now and again, like, what if daydreaming were never something the human mind could do? Or it fucking showed me itself, like an anglerfish. I didn't know what to make of it. Of course, I told myself the obvious answer, that he was unwell. My fib to myself just made me more curious to understand what he was talking about. The closer to the end of the journal, the more soaked in liquid lineage the pages became, and the crazier the handwriting. Letters no longer were confined to the lines. Each one was contorted into different shapes and sizes. Words were either too small to read by the naked eye, or too big to fit on the page. One page was blank, except for one line, which had hundreds of different sentences written on the same line over and over again. One page wasn't written in any language I could detect, but it seemed to me Grant had followed the grammar rules of wherever it came from. Every letter in this language seemed to be written with painstaking care and effort. Not even the slightest deviation in shape for some of the reappearing characters. A new feature for the journal. The whole page started to resemble meaningless schizophrenia rambling, yet it oozed confidence about it. It meant nothing to me in my quest for explanation, but it still impressed me. One page had the word plan written down over and over again, with what seemed to be bullet points underneath. The first one read out, bad thoughts. One bullet point read out, try smoking. Another, try drinking. The blood was too thick to read what was in the middle. The last bullet points read, listen to sad music, and burn, Matthew. Besides plan. Another word was written over and over again. It was simply, cut. The next pages were titled, "Wake up," in big, bold letters. More bullet points. One said noise, another said touch. One line was half haphazardly scribbled out, and it said, "When it's full." My brain couldn't make sense of it. Every theory I had crafted seemed to be true and false all at once. Everything supports that he was insane, but my gut feeling couldn't shake that something was there in the sink, tormenting Grant. I made a violent page turn, and a waterfall of colorful paper and tape fell out into my lap. Sticky notes and lined paper were stuck together with tape and glue. It was a diagram of what Grant had seen in the sink. The tentacle was crudely drawn in with a black Sharpie. The tentacle wasn't exactly like an octopus. It looked malnourished, about the size of an index and middle finger held together. The tentacle didn't have any deviation in size or shape until the end, where it had become a stub. It didn't have the suckers on it. Instead, it was countless proboscis where each of the little suction cups should be. Grant estimated that maybe 100 to 200 small needles were in each group. He must have gotten a worse look at the paw he described. It was scribbled down with no size estimates. I would guess it couldn't be bigger than a cat's paw. Otherwise, there was no way the whole animal could fit into the garbage disposal. Grant drew what looked like talons and webbed toes. For once, I entertained the idea that it was real. The thought of whatever this animal was living right in front of me forced me to dry heave. I slid the journal away from me and ran to the bathroom. With the journal falling onto the floor, I fell to the ground in front of the toilet and tried to vomit to distract myself for hours. It was all too much to handle. When I finally got back up and walked back to the book, it was open to a page that was written in the dark, foul-smelling ink that covered the rest of the book. It stated, adding this, "The sink isn't safe to use." I stood staring into the sink. It was the next day. I hadn't slept at all. I was too busy trying to wash the blood off the pages of the book so that I could read more. I just ended up washing some of the ink and lead off. I lost track of time and only realized it when the sun came up through my blinds. I wanted to call out of work, but I needed to find some link between Grant's book to reality. I needed to prove that maybe he was delusional, that maybe he did harm Raymond. Someone grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. "Jacqueline." It was an unfamiliar voice. Christ. What? What are you doing? I was in my own little world when the new hire woke me up. Gosh, man, I was just introducing myself, you know. "Sorry, lady," said the new hire. I didn't realize how harsh my words were at the moment. I told myself I was cranky from the lack of sleep. Really, it was the lack of answers. "Oh my, I'm sorry. My name is Jacqueline. You're the new hire. Nice to meet you. Sorry, I was just on autopilot, I guess." I ended with a nervous chuckle that made me sound stir-crazy. Double quotes. "Oh, it's okay, no. I was just asking 'cause I think my schedule is all messed up. But Bossman is telling me I'm staying here late with him because of an event or whatever pickleball tournament they are running here." The new hire said before walking towards the board in the hallway. He was right. He was scheduled until midnight, along with Maxwell. The latest I've ever been here was 9 o'clock. Grant and Raymond's faces glared up at me from the bottom of the announcement board. The photo of Grant looked like he was staring into my eyes. I looked for a way to change the subject. "So, what's your name? Maybe Maxwell just wants to teach you as much as you can learn in a day. It's your second day, right? I bet you will like this job. I've been here for just over 3 years. My mouth rambled out. "How long were they here?" He was looking at Maxwell and Grant. The question made the hallway fall quiet. Raymond was here for 10 years. Grant 5. My high-pitched fake work voice fell away. "Cool. Bet they got shit done, you know," he said as he walked back to the dish pit. I did know. Raymond taught me how to get 4 hours of dishes done in 30 minutes. Grant taught me how to dive and deliver food on the shitty golf cart. Grant also told me about the thing in the sink. I was fighting with the question, was there even anything in the sink all morning? I practically had my head down the drain, with my phone flashlight for the first hour of my shift. The idea that Grant was a delusional and harmful person was what I was hoping for. I wanted to punch myself so hard bones would shatter just for thinking that. The next few hours kept my mind busy training the teenage stoner. It was a blessing in disguise. Oh dude, this stain just won't come out. Do you think you can take over Jackie? I need to hit a dart. It was whatever his name was. I was busy observing the bloodstains on the poster again. It was the start of a large slash of blood that still hadn't been cleaned up. I followed the slash up the wall, and it ended at a security camera. It was one of those things your brain never registers until everything else in your surroundings is silent. It was pointed right at the sink and to the drying racks behind it, where I was sitting. Maybe I could get my answer to whether the thing in the sink really exists. The security office was at the front of the retirement community. I passed by it every day I worked. I didn't want to wait until the end. My shift, but I didn't want Maxwell to be left alone with the toddler currently struggling to remove a ketchup stain from a ceramic plate. I'm gonna go check with Maxwell about your schedule, okay? Making sure all is good, I said in my work voice. I needed to talk to a normal person for a few minutes, at least, maybe to discuss the camera and what I found in that journal. Dude, I just asked for help, and you walk away. Whatever, man. I paid him no attention as I walked towards Maxwell's office. I grabbed the keys for the golf cart hanging on the outside of the office door before knocking. A quiet weeping came from inside the door. I paused. Maybe now wasn't the time to talk about a camera and a bloody journal. Instead, maybe a little checkup. I knock and hear him quickly cleans up inside his small room. The door opens, and out pops Maxwell. Hey, Jacqueline, need something? He asks. I'm just making sure you're okay. So, you okay? He takes my words in for a second and thinks. I also take this time to appreciate the moment of being able to talk to him. Maxwell is always wearing a flannel over his work shirt. It seems like it would go good with a beard, but his face is clean shaven, nonetheless. The orange flannel he has on now matches his green eyes well. Green eyes that were bloodshot from crying. Double quotes. Can I give you a hug? I ask. He sucks on his lips and gives me a nod. It's a quick one, no more than 5 seconds long. It was awkward, but for a moment, I forgot all about everything. All about Grant. I hope Maxwell did too. I back off and sit down on the stool in the room, while he sits back down on his chair. Want to talk? About stuff going on, I said. I couldn't poison this man's mind with the contents of the journal, or the fact that I believed that something lived in the sink. Yeah, fuck, where to begin, am I right? He chuckles out, but I chuckle with him. We talked for about half an hour. We talk about life, but mostly about Raymond and Grant. I share my favorite memory of Raymond, that being his band. They were a mariachi band that sometimes played for some of the residents. I usually snuck out to listen whenever they came. I always sat in the back, and he always, without fail, managed to see me and give me a thank you after the show. He was an amazing guitar player, makes me wish I stuck with it. Maxwell said his favorite memory of Raymond was all of the mustache grooming tips he got whenever there was downtime. Raymond did have a very well-trimmed horseshoe mustache. Maxwell's favorite memory of Grant is when he first taught Grant how to run deliveries. Apparently, Grant hit 3 mailboxes, 2 parked cars, and barely missed an old woman walking her dog. Maxwell was convinced that the flat tire was Grant's fault when I had to share my favorite memory of him. The journal crowded my head. I could see the memory I knew I wanted to talk about, but almost everything in it was altered. The joint Grant handed me at the end of my first shift was rolled in bloody paper, and his arm was still gone. He was using his ulna and radius to hold the joint. I just have too many to choose from, I said. I couldn't describe what I saw. I should probably go back and help the new hire. I figured I spent enough time checking up with Maxwell, and probably should go do something productive. Not that this wasn't. "Thanks, Jacqueline. I appreciate you," he said right before he left his office. I was thankful for him too. I'm glad he was still around. I forgot all about asking him for the new hire's schedule. Oh well, right as the clock at 7, it was time to go check the security footage. I said goodbye to Maxwell and the new hire and headed for the door. I had yet to lay eyes on it. The final barrier holding back the part of my body, begging to believe in it. Hopefully, I was going to prove that it was either mad ramblings or nothing else. Wouldn't the police have checked it? If they had done, this mystery would have been solved right away. I was beginning to believe that this might have been a futile trip. I pulled over next to the small building, got out of the car, and hastily walked to the door of the office, and without meaning to, pounded on the door harder than I imagined. I might as well go through with it. The door swung open, and Reggie looked down at me with surprise. Oh, hi Jacqueline, you gave me a scare." He gave a hearty chuckle. "Sorry, Reggie, I was coming to check something." A puzzled look grew upon his face. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Yeah, I noticed the security camera above the sink." I barely finished a sentence before Reggie's face changed color in an instant. He shifted his body, just barely, to block the camera feed behind him at the desk. Thousands of alarm bells rang in my head. "Well, yeah, what about it? We can't give out any of the footage, Jacqueline," he said hastily. "I never asked for footage, Reggie." Those words came out of their own accord in a sudden bounce of confidence. Reggie was caught up in his words, trying to formulate a sentence. "Look, I want to see what happened that night. You've seen it, the thing in the sink." I took the biggest gamble of my life with that sentence. Either he would know what I'm talking about, or look at me absolutely bewildered. Reggie regained his composure and, with a blank, cold face, asked, "Did Maxwell send you?" Those 4 words derailed the momentary confidence I had found. Did Maxwell know about this? He didn't tell me. All the confidence I had gained in that moment washed away. While my thoughts were running through my mind, my head started a slow, somber nod. I guess it was about time. It's been hard for us. I've never heard him refer to it as the thing in the sink, though. Come in. Some of Reggie's kindness returned to his face as he shot me a quick smile. He opened his stance and gave me a quick wave through the door. The security room was small, with barely enough room for a desk, an office chair, a water cooler, and the buttons to let the bar gate up. Reggie grabbed the back of the chair and swung it around, raising his palm and offering the seat. I sat, and he whips the seat around so that my face meets the screen. He pulls out a USB drive, plugs it in, and opens the folder titled Offers. Hundreds of video files pop up on the screen. No words are exchanged between us. Only one of those hundreds of videos matters to me in the moment. Reggie doesn't pay attention to the screen, his eyes slyly placed to the side of his skull, observing me. Each of the video logs is numbered. I see 1, 2, 23, 56, 89, 117, 130, and finally, 147, 148. The last video log, Reggie's rotund body blocking me from leaving, tries to give me the comfort that I still have a choice of leaving this situation by asking, "Are you sure you want to see this?" I don't say anything. I turn my head, letting my eyes meet his. Although he is stone-faced, his eyes shake with a quiet pleading. I quietly nod, letting my eyes drift back to the screen. He rubs the bottom of his nose, opens the file, and turns away, opening his phone. The video doesn't have any sound, and nothing is visible. The light above the sink flickers on, giving the cold metal below a white, sterile glow. The sink is the only thing visible for a while before a small orange glow starts in the corner, near the drying racks. The glow illuminates Grant's face as he lights up a cigarette. Grant holds up something else to the lighter, letting it burn in his undamaged hand. He doesn't move while the fire gets to his fingertips. He does the same thing for a few more items, but when it comes to the last small square-shaped paper, he walks into the light. It's a Polaroid photo. He stares at it for a minute before holding the lighter up to it. He hesitates to burn the image. Instead, Grant crumpled the photo in his hand and dropped it to the ground, crushing it below his worn-out Vans. He puts an earbud in, clicks something on his phone, and walks toward the sink. This is the first time that I have seen him for who he was, not the body left behind. He's wearing ripped jeans and a logoless hoodie. The light shimmers across his black buzz cut and bounces off his silver piercings into the camera. His face unshaven and shaggy, sickly black bags pulling his eyes down so that you can see the red underneath. He takes one last toke of the cigarette and flicks it into the sink. Grant just stares, staring for an eternity deep into the darkness of the sink. He is as solid as stone. All that happens to him physically is that a large, singular tear falls from his face. I follow the glistening tear as it falls into the sink, where I finally see it. The first feeling that washes over me is denial. I try to explain it away, that maybe the sink was just backed up, and that there was a plumbing problem, and some food at the end of the shift was pushed back up to the pipes. Maybe Raymond, at the end of the shift, left something by accident. When he was closing up that night, maybe we served a calamari dinner to the residents. I knew these were all false in my heart. The plumber came and fixed the garbage disposal that day. I closed up that as Raymond mopped, and the kitchen gave the residents chicken skewers for dinner that night. I knew my mind was trying to explain the unexplainable, but as another, then a fourth shape slowly emerged from the sink, my eyes finally let my brain believe. The thing in the sink was real, and was currently wrapping its tentacles around Grant. I started to audibly cry out, "Move, move," but it was all in vain. He didn't seem like he wanted to move. Maybe he couldn't. The tentacles looked exactly like what Grant had written down, except they didn't seem to have an end. Grant was tall, over 6 feet. He had to bend down to wash burns and stains off the dishes. He was standing upright, and the tentacles were already wrapping around the backside of his head. The proboscises all seemed to have a mind of their own, each trying to stick deep into Grant's flesh as they grew closer to the skin. Grant still hadn't moved, yet tears streamed down his solid face. I could barely see the right side of his face, where his pupil was looking wildly around at the tentacles, trying to escape his skull. 2 of the tentacles started to caress the back of his head. They flattened out and sank their needles into his skull. I instinctively shot my hand up over my open mouth, and I used the same hand to block one of my eyes. I forced myself to keep watching. The 2 tentacles that had submerged their proboscises started to pull apart, almost like butter. The back of Grant's scalp and skull opened up, but it wasn't violent. No blood poured out, no twitching, just a clean slide open, like 2 curtains, on the stage. Like it was that easy for a skull to slide open. It still didn't deter my body from shivering uncontrollably. The first 2 tentacles held the back plate of the skull open while the other 2 started flipping through Grant's brain folds like a book. The proboscises didn't sink into the brain, just gently caressed the bumps and wrinkles, like they were following words. Grant's pupil had stopped moving. I would have believed he had accepted his new possession. If the tears weren't like waterfalls, the tentacles kept reading his brain for minutes, before they seemed to gather enough of what they were looking for. The 2 holding tentacles slowly and anchored from the back of his scalp. The skull and scalp slid right back into place, cleanly fitting in like nothing had happened. 3 of the tentacles retreated into the drain. The last one of the holding tentacles grabbed Grant's wrist and started pulling his hand toward the sink. Grant's statue was steadfast. I quietly pleaded for him to do anything, to attempt to run, as his bandaged hand was dragged into the sink. Up to his elbow, his other tattooed arm started floating up to right below the sink. I wasn't expecting him to move. He was reaching for something. His fingers fumbled around looking for something underneath the sink. I couldn't see, but I had a feeling it was the on switch for the garbage disposal. Grant's pupil was as high as it could go. It was both, escaping the pool of tears, and the image of his own hand being ripped away. I couldn't either. I had already seen the aftermath. There was no reason to watch it happen. I turned around and slammed my forehead to my knees, slamming my eyes shut, only letting the biggest tears out. I swear, I thought I heard a sound in the video for a second, the sound of a click, and then a crunch. It sounded a lot like if someone dropped a carton of eggs, a loud crack with the sound of the yolk being squeezed and squirted out. I slammed my hands over my ears. It didn't stop the noise of celery when you bite down on it. I knew it was Grant's hand. I heard the blade got stuck at points, making the same particular sound of metal clunking against bone echo in my skull. I fell out of the chair, screaming, trying to get the sound out of my imagination. Jacqueline. Jacqueline. Reggie had rushed to my side, throwing his phone on the table. His hands felt cold on my back, reeling me back to where I was, and the danger I was in. Are you okay? Reggie reached for his phone, typed quickly, and put his phone up to his ear. Maxwell, we've got a problem. It was all too clear to me that this was an operation. If I can't get out now, all I can hope for is an easier death than Grant's. I pulled my elbow in and pushed it out as hard as I could towards Reggie. I landed it on his shoulder. It wasn't much, but it was enough to knock him off his feet. I scrambled to my feet and threw my body towards the door. I slammed into it and ran. I'm sure Reggie had told Maxwell that I had figured out that something was in the sink. I ran past a golf cart. The thing only had a top speed of 15 miles per hour, if you got lucky. My eyes were filled with tears falling behind me as I ran. I didn't know where I was running to. I told myself that it was my car, but I knew deep down that I needed to see the thing for myself. He had logs of what I presumed were hundreds of deaths, due to the thing in the sink. I didn't want to believe any of this was real at first, but now, that's all I want. The last thing I heard from the security office was Reggie screaming into his phone. Jacqueline knows. She's coming straight to you, trying to make me think that they hadn't already set up a plan. I arrived back at the kitchen, out of breath. I fumbled through my pockets, constantly looking back to make sure Reggie wasn't behind me. I prayed I hadn't dropped my name tag while running. After a mini heart attack when the first pocket came up empty, I ripped it out of my second pocket and scanned the barcode. The door unlocked, and I tore through the labyrinth of back halls until I reached the kitchen door. I grabbed the handle and hesitated. What was I doing? Most of my run had been focused on the monstrosity in the sink. I gave in to one last argument with myself. Maybe the video was CGI to cover up for murders. In this moment of uncertainty, I chose to try to lay eyes upon what I had been living in the sink. Maxwell didn't matter anymore. All I wanted was to see the dark flesh that took my coworkers, no, my friends, from me. I opened the door and sprinted into the darkness. I tried to make a right turn, but came in flying, sliding on a streak of dirty water and slamming into a drying rack full of pots, pans, and cutlery. All sense of stealth was gone as a cacophony of metal crashed onto concrete. I grabbed a knife and wobbled to my feet. If Reggie had caught up, or if Maxwell was waiting, at least I had some defense now. I followed the streak of dirty water to its source. As I grew closer, the single light above the sink called to me like the pearly gates of hell, a warm, ephemeral light. The light revealed something to me in that moment. What I had been following wasn't water. It was a deep brown blood. It didn't stop me. It only drew me closer. I now stood where Grant had stood, staring deep into the sink. I stared into the blackness of the drain hole, a gluttonous black that swallowed all the light that entered. I stared for what felt like an hour, knowing whatever was in the sink was looking right back at me, studying me. That was all I could focus on. Nothing else mattered. Jacqueline. I heard it, but I paid no attention. Jacqueline, again. I heard it this time, as if underwater. Jacqueline. The muffled footsteps grew louder, and the small human part of me tried to look at whoever was calling. But I tried to move my hands to use the knife, but they wouldn't budge. It felt like they were encased in a ton of concrete. I pulled with my shoulders, and got the sensation they were moving, but my hands didn't move an inch. I pulled my feet up with my thighs, but the same thing happened. I tried to look around, but it felt like a concrete neck pillow was trapping me. Nothing moved except my eyeballs. My vision felt more sunken in, and I couldn't see as much as before. I felt myself shrinking into my brain, like a setting sun on the horizon. I knew nothing was holding me physically. My hands were free, no shackles or anything. I kept receding into my mind until I bumped into something. It was squishy, yet firm, almost like my back was against a trampoline. I tried to make a sound of shock, but nothing came out. I'm not even sure my mouth opened. The only thing I could see was the drain hole, until Maxwell came in front of me, blocking my entire view. He was crying, shaking me, trying to release me from my prison. He looked up and down, trying to find any crack to break the wall, encasing me. He stopped moving his head frantically, staring at the knife in my hand. His mouth quaked, eyes streaming tears. He reached for the knife, ripped it out of my hand, and without hesitation, ran the blade down my arm. Nothing. No pain. No warmth from the running blood. Nothing. I was trapped. Maxwell broke down into tears. He slowly backed away from the sink, letting me finally see the 4 darkest spires of another realm coming out of the retirement home sink. I pulled with all my strength to get away from the sink. For a second I stumbled back, but it was into the trampoline texture again. I didn't know what it was the first time, but now it was clear. Whatever was in the sink was holding me hostage in my mind. I felt millions of small proboscises sink into my skull painlessly, opening it like it had with Grant. Once the back of my skull was open, the thing in the sink used another tentacle to flip through the wrinkles of my brain. It was looking for something. All I could think of in that moment was more repressed memories it could devour. It took its time, making sure to read everything I'd known for the past 24 years of conscious life. It stopped where I thought would be the penultimate chapter of a book. It removed its needles from my skull. All but one. It was the first ounce of pain I felt while in its invisible grasp. It retreated its tentacles, and my skull slid back into place. The trampoline texture receded from my back as an invisible current pushed me back to full view. Lukewarm blood dripped from my hand. Warmth, I felt again. I looked down, my neck obeying, to see the gash Maxwell had left. Laying eyes upon it finally let my brain recognize my own pain. I unconsciously shot my hand toward the wound, grabbing it and trying to stop the bleeding. I looked around to see where Maxwell had gone. Not very far. He was staring at me with emotions that scared me more than the encounter with the thing in the sink. He looked relieved, taking deep breaths with a small smile. He dropped the knife and walked toward me with open arms, wrapping me in a cold embrace that smelled like iron and cigarette smoke. He whispered into my ear through heavy breathing, finally. "Thank you." His voice was shaky and dry. I pushed him off, which didn't deter. His surprise. "Please, Jacqueline, don't fight it." He was pleading, but I didn't care. I cut him off. "What the fuck is happening? What have you been doing?" I couldn't cry anymore. I didn't even want to know the answers. I just wanted out of this pit. It's okay to not understand. I still don't get it all. Everything I know about it is a guess. It brings you to itself. Through any process, it sees fit. He points towards the sink. "Did that thing tell you that, and you believe it?" I was dumbfounded. "You did, didn't you? You followed its call to this moment. Everything you've done was orchestrated by it. It sees something in you." I let out a scoff, and my jaw dropped, but I never disagreed. There are goddamn tentacles in the sink. I hated how he talked about it like it was a football coach, like it had a plan for me. You don't respect that thing. You're scared. It's nothing more than an animal, a predator. The skeptic in me never left. Maxwell's flimsy smile fell away, and he spoke his true mind, and it came out with a boom. I don't want this anymore. I never wanted to be a puppet to some Cthulian house cat. I don't know why it wanted me. It listened to me, just like you, and it followed me everywhere. I tried to move states, out of the country, just away from that thing, but it found me. He took a moment to catch his breath, continuing with a far meeker voice. It crammed itself into my car, under the hood. It took her. She didn't even look at me when it went off the road. All focus, torn away so easily. Then, it was just me and it. He looked for understanding in my eyes, but the only thing running through my body was confusion. Whoever her was, it was just an accident, and I'm sorry, but you can't blame it on this animal. You hurt Grant and Raymond. You don't get to blame that animal. I was trying to convince Maxwell that this thing, whatever it is just a rabid animal. At least, that's what I told myself. Don't you dare fucking say that about that monster. I never intended to hurt any of you. How was I supposed to? No, Grant was a water buffalo of trauma. No one ever brings that here to work. He ranted in a wild frenzy of defense. You're wrong, but he was so incredibly right. I never saw any distress Grant put out. No one did. I was desperate to please it, so maybe that was a way it would leave me alone. So I brought it here. I thought a retirement home would be perfect for it. Years of regrets among the hundreds of residents would be a gold mine for whatever it wanted. I thought that it would only hurt those close to the end of their life. I thought it would be happy, and I was right. I thought it would come for them and leave me alone, though not bring them to me to clean up. Maxwell swallowed the knot in his throat. What are you even talking about? Regret. It eats flesh and blood, just like any other predator. Nothing can eat thoughts. I screamed at him. It doesn't matter what you think, what you believe. It just chooses those who help it in any way. Maxwell said as the room fell silent. Maxwell's eyes looked past me, past everything, longing for something not visible in the distance. I felt adrenaline pooling in my calves and shins. Why me? He asked as he broke the silence. The adrenaline was about to overflow in my legs. Maxwell fell to the ground, crawling toward the sink, whispering, "She'll understand. She has to. And take it away, over and over." I did understand. A dish pit would be the perfect place to house it. Easy access to cleaning materials. Plenty of drains. No carpet or cloth, just cold tiles. Right out back was a trash compactor. No one would notice the smell of rot if the stench of trash was already in the air, and the truck would come and pick up the trash. No one would bat an eye. That explained everything in my mind. Maxwell, someone whom I trusted ever so deeply, was a killer who had a perfect plan for hiding his victims. Reggie, a man meant to protect, was an accomplice. This was all just a plan of two sick men who wanted me to join them. That was the only rational explanation for everything. I started moving again, away from the sink. Oh, that's right. There was one thing I left out, the thing in the sink. Maybe I was hallucinating, like mass hysteria, or maybe I was drugged by Maxwell. I couldn't craft a theory where those fit. I didn't have to. I turned back one final time to see if I could catch a glimpse of the thing in the sink, to feed my undying hunger. The thing had now revealed itself. It stood on two front legs on the edge of the sink. The second my brain registered what it was, it let out a shriek. I don't know how to describe it. It sounded like 1,000 voices, all imitating a scream by whispering, yet I still felt deep in my chest. Claws ripped deep into the metal, anchoring it. It was no bigger than an opossum. Its skin was smooth and deep black. Wet food chunks covered its skin. making the room reek of putrid wet food. Its tentacles were holding Maxwell, coddling him. As he cried to himself, I saw all of the small needles brushing his hair. I whipped my head around and sprinted. It was the most I had seen of it, yet in the second I looked, I only got a glance. I didn't want to look at it any longer than I had to. I couldn't help but feel a deep foreboding dread in my stomach. I was right, it was an animal, but not from this world. It looked like it was vermin, like wherever it came from, whatever dimension spat this creature out. It was nothing but the very bottom of its food chain. Yet here, it dined on humans as much as it wanted. I wasn't going to let it hurt me or read me or whatever the hell it wanted. I ran past the blood on the floor, past the stench of the garbage disposal, and straight to my car. The sun and breeze failed to give me the sense of relief I desperately craved. I pulled out of the parking lot screeching. I didn't slow down when I saw the barrier at the security office blocking my path. I didn't slow for Reggie, waving his arms and trying to stop me. He jumped to the side as I slammed through the bar gate, pits of plastic or glass flying into my face. I didn't slow for any lights or stop signs. I only stopped when I pulled into my apartment complex and ran inside to hide within the false comforts of my home, where I tearlessly sobbed. It's been 2 days. I want the police to call me in for questioning, for interviews. I want to tell them about the tapes. I want to tell them about the trash compactor so they can find the bloodless body of the new guy. I want to tell them everything. Everything except the thing in the sink. I haven't told them anything because it follows me everywhere. I know it's there. I turn my head for a second and see a dark shape move out of view. Or the light from the lamp casts an undeniable shadow of a tentacle. I see scratch marks on my front door. Birds with hundreds of holes show up on my balcony like an offering, the same one it wants. The only silver lining to this situation is that I don't have to think about the betrayal from Maxwell since my mind was so preoccupied. The hurt I felt deep within my soul is undefinable. Only the sight and torment of an extraterrestrial creature could drown it out. The truth is, I can't tell the police. They'd think I'm insane. Maybe they'd think I killed that new guy. I know the police wouldn't believe me, but maybe you all would. I'm sharing this story now online to get the word out about this thing. I've reopened the bloodstained journal to write it all down. Be careful of this thing, whatever it may be, or wherever it dwells. Maybe since you know about it now, it will come for you and leave me alone. I am so deeply sorry if that's the case, and just in the event it leaves me alone and wanders back to his home. I want to extend the warning Grant gave me back when I found the journal. If you're reading this, please don't apply for a dishwasher position at Riverside Memories Retirement Community. Enjoyed this one? Subscribe now. The next tale is darker, and it's already waiting for you.